All right, good evening, everyone. This is Charles with the Exodus Logistics Learning Center, which features tonight the Freight Broker 101 training for beginners. This is the beginner level training for tonight. I invited a few guests if they do come in for some Q&A, but it's also for beginner level members. How you guys doing? You guys can unmute yourself since it's just two of us, or three of us so far, and then we'll come in as we go. We got Kayla coming in. All right. Kayla Tate, how are you? Can you hear me? Miss Kayla? Kaya, I'm sorry, Kaya.
Kaya, yes, I can hear you.
Kaya, how are you? Are you, I assume you're a guest, coming in as a guest.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, hold on, let me check my audio because it is breaking up a little bit.
Oh, Kaya, you're a member as well. I see your name. All right. As long as you guys can hear me and see,
yes.
Hear and see me, this will be fine. All right, so beginning freight brokering. What is that all about, right? What do you guys think that's about? Give me an overview of your understanding of what a freight broker is, what they do, what their duties are, and things like that, and then we can elaborate on that, and go from there. Anyone have an understanding or any type of knowledge of brokering?
I believe is to pretty much develop a level of communication between broker and shipper, and coming to an agreement to getting freight moved.
Okay.
Point A to point B.
Okay. So is that all the parties involved from a broker's perspective? Is just the shipper, the relationship with the shipper?
No, there will be three parties. It'll be broker, shipper, and carrier.
Okay. So, okay. Very good. Very good. So I was in some training myself for advanced brokering, but I'm going to share an overview of what we went over. So when you guys do, I'm assuming you guys are at a point where you're forming your business right now. You're forming your LLC or S Corp or C Corp, getting your business license, your EIN number. You guys are taking care of that in the background. And then you're getting some training here or wherever else you may be getting training. And you're going to come to a point where, okay, once or you may not even be at the point where you're ready to even apply for your authority, your broker authority. Or you may be in the process where you are applying for your broker authority. You're going through that process of your broker authority, your bond, your UCR, your BOC3, and insurance. Is anyone going through that process now or has started that process? Or even working as an agent under a brokerage? So there's several scenarios. Who's doing what?
Me personally, I've considered going through that process, but for me, I think it'd be better to work as an agent, just to understand the whole process and then transition into that section later.
Okay, Chris, so who did you communicate? Have you communicated with anyone possibly as an agent, freight agent?
Yeah, I've called Cough Logistics. I've called a few different agents. Also, I've joined a couple of Facebook groups and just reached out to a couple of independent brokerages. One guy was just starting out. He was the only person working for his brokerage. And I didn't feel it was a good fit because he had just actually got started probably 2 weeks ago. I think he said it was his first day actually in operation when I spoke with him. And then Cough Logistics is actually, they seem pretty good actually. I love the way they're set up. However, they do require a book of business.
Okay.
So just kind of, searching around a little bit, but definitely out networking, talking.
Did you call James or did James call you?
James, I don't think I've spoke with James.
Mr. Nelson at Switchback.
Oh, no. I haven't spoke with James yet. I actually just joined the class last week. I think on over the weekend.
Yeah, I remember. I thought he mentioned for you to call him.
Oh, I didn't know. No, so I think I hadn't heard. I haven't heard about that. If so, I can reach out to him though for sure. I think there was a lady in the class named Tina, I believe, who had said that. I forgot the lady's name now, but it was. She said somebody who was working for. Can't even think of the name now.
Okay.
Was looking for sub agents though, but I can reach out to James as well.
Right. So I got right here on my screen here, there are brokers that I have partnerships with.
Okay.
Not contractually, but they'll say, well, if you know anybody who may be interested in being agents, have them call. Not Kimberly here and not Nikisha, but I know James could be potentially looking for agents.
Amazing. Okay.
Agility, and I got to put their contact information in here. And
Okay.
I know Amy over at YMMD, and I know Kobe over at Strategy Movements. So okay, so those are the resources there.
Okay, I appreciate that. I'll start with James then, since he's mentioned.
And James may come in here tonight. So,
Okay.
yeah. So Raymond and Kaya, are you guys in the process of considering starting your own brokerage? Are you in the process of working as a broker agent under an established brokerage? Are you in the process of already having your brokerage active and you're just needing some training where to go next as far as getting customers? Where are you at right now currently?
As for myself, yeah, I've been about like 20 years in logistics. So I just kind of figured I go ahead and just jump into the industry instead of just playing a part in the industry. So I just went ahead and tried for my broker. So I went on ahead and I got an authority.
Okay, so you applied, you went through the process of applying for a broker authority. Is it active?
No, it's not active.
Okay.
No.
So where are you in the process? Because I know there's a series of steps. And Kaya, I'm not sure if you are in the same position as Raymond as far as applying for your authority or wanting to work for a brokerage already as an agent, or.
Yes. So what I think that I'm going to do is just gain the knowledge first, and then just probably start to work for an agent first, and then move forward just to get my feet wet a little bit and just to get a feel for the industry.
And speaking of Mr. Nelson, he's joined us also. Hey, Mr. Nelson. So you guys want to get the knowledge. Back to Mr. Raymond, you are in the process of applying for your broker authority. So have you already been to the fmcsa.dlt.gov website and went through that process and paid that $300 to the FMCSA?
Yeah, my 300 is already in, but I just kind of am it's going through the process of learning right now. So
okay.
Yeah, so I got the authority, but it's just I've been at a halt right now because just a little bit more homework to do, and I just got a lot more learning.
Right, because not only do you need the broker authority, you also have to have a bond of $75,000. I'm sure you're aware of that, correct?
Yeah, correct.
So either a BMC 84 or BMC 85, the surety bond or the trust fund. One is based off of credit. Other one is just if you happen to have $75,000 laying around in escrow somewhere, you can, that's the surety bond. It's probably, so that's based off of credit. So let's say you go with the surety bond, and good credit can give you a rate, I guess, between 2 and 5% of the 75,000. So let's say if your credit score warrants you a 2% rating, 2% of that 75 is 1,500, and then 5% of 75 is 3,750. So the range with a person with a good personal credit could potentially be between, and this is annually, between 1,500 and 3,750 annually. So you break that down in monthly, that'll pretty much give you an idea of what you could be
Yeah,
potentially.
mine's was higher than that. My
Right.
my annual was out the roof, so I was like, yeah, let me go ahead and backtrack. Let me go ahead and
Oh, really?
reassess. Yeah, let me reassess how this is really need to get set up. So
But I
yeah,
don't know. I don't know what your credit. I don't know what your credit was then, because good credit is between 2 and 5. I guess bad or not good credit is between 5 and 13% of the bond amount. So let's say that yours was between 5 and 13. So 5% is 3,750. 13% of 75,000 is, if I put those numbers in, just to give you an idea of how sometimes they calculate these, and depends on who you're going with, like Lance Surety, JW Surety, or whoever you're dealing with. 9,750. So between 5 and 13% is between 3,750 and 9,750 annually. So are you in that range?
yeah,
Okay.
it's
Okay.
around there. Yeah,
Okay. So even then, so if you take, and that's annual, so 9,750. If you take the high end and divide it by 12, that's 812.50 per month for your bond coverage. So, and then after, okay, so you got the authority, the bond, and then you have your, you need a process server, an agent, and the form for that is called a BOC3, right? So that's the next thing, and I'm gonna put this on my screen. This flow chart, so to speak, if you will. When you were actually, so this is for someone who's brand new, who just conceived the idea, hey, I wanna be a broker. What do I do day one, right? So when you go on the FMCSA website, the online form is called an OP1, OP-1 form. And then you also got the MCS 150, which gives you the DOT, but the OP1 form starts the process of your brokerage, right? So MC, bond, BOC3, and after your BOC3 is filed with the FMCSA, and your bond is filed with the FMCSA, and of course your OP1 form, which the authority is filed with the FMCSA, then there's a 10-day period where people who, it becomes a matter of public record. People can protest that if they don't think you should be a broker. I don't know why. I don't know. Somebody's just staring at the computer saying, oh, let me see people pop in here and let me protest that. I don't know them, but for, I guess in fairness, they allow them to do that. Let's say you wasn't protested, and then they'll just let that through, and now you're good to go. But you still have to have also a UCR, Unified Carrier Registration, and also insurance at this point, because now majority of shippers, especially those good paying shippers, are requiring brokers now to have some type of insurance coverage, whether it's liability, whether it's contingent cargo, whether it's errors and omissions, some type of coverage. So so thinking of becoming a broker, there are some startup costs involved, and you would have to consider, okay, what is my cost? And I got different breakdowns of different numbers and stuff, but what is my cost? What's my monthly cost? What are the things that are involved? Before you decide, I want to go this route. So any questions about any of this part so far? All right. So now let's say you get your authority, right? And let's say you are active. Let's say you have no book of business, which means you have no accounts, no shippers, no clients, right? Book of business. You have no experience, no credit, things like that. But you start to build your credit up, however type of techniques that you use. And let's say you get a customer, right? Whether you do it through an invitation to come talk to them at their facility on their campus, or you do it through cold call, or you do it through email, or however you do it, LinkedIn, social media. and you talk to them, and whatever you said convinced them to say, yeah, let me give you a tender. Let me present you with a tender or with a load tender, or at least quote a lane for me, or let me give you my target rate. So I want to go into tonight something about, I want to put some steps in order. You've gotten past all the point of getting your broker, your authority active. You got your first shipper. Now what do you do? What do you do when you get your first shipper, right? So I'm gonna put some steps in order from the time you receive a tender from your customer until the process is totally complete. Are you guys okay with that? You good? Okay. So, and even that term, what is a tender? What does it mean by a tender or load tender or whatever, right? It's just basically the tender is like, it just gives a description of that lane or the loads, the details of it, all the DIMs, the weights, where it's picking up, where it's delivering to, number of stops and things like that. It's just everything that's needed for that particular load or that particular lane, I should say. So I'm going to open up a Word document and I'm going to share this screen and talk about some high level broker concepts when it comes to moving the load. Let me share my screen. I don't think I'm sharing this particular Word document. Can you guys see the blank Word document screen?
Yes, I can see it.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, I
okay,
can.
cool. Okay, so I'm just gonna type in steps in order from the time you accept a load tender. And you guys understand what a load tender is. If you do not, let me know. I can break it down for you. From your customer, which is, who is your customer? The shipper, right? And
Can you break down the load tender, please?
yes. So,
Thank you.
okay. So a load tender it contains the details and the description of a particular lane that a shipper is going to award you. Whether they awarded you this by you providing them a quote. Let's say a shipper say, I need you to quote a lane for me, and you quoted that lane. They gave you the pickup, the delivery, the equipment type, the weight, number of stops, and all that stuff. And you came back with a decent quote that included everything that you needed to include in it. And they gave you some information or a piece of paper awarding you that particular lane. And that piece of paper contained a lot of detailed information about that specific lane. So you can effectively move that freight or that cargo or that load. That is a load tender. It contains, and there's a lot of stuff is in there for the carrier, as far as accessorials, as far as line haul rate, as far as description of the freight, where it's picking up from, the shipper location, where it's delivering to, which is the receiver location, any extra stops in there, any fuel surcharges in there that's available. So it contains very detailed information, as much detail as possible, because this freight needs to be effectively transported, and it cannot be if there's not enough information to determine that. So that's what a load tender is essentially about, okay? It just contains the details, description of that particular load. And I'm looking for a generalized definition that I had, and so I can give it to you in more layman's terms. But that's essentially, it's a description of, or the details of the load. And that's a generalized definition. That should be a good enough right there. Are you following that, Kaya?
Yeah, no, I'm following it. That was good. Thank you.
I had my technical supply chain definition, but I don't want to overwhelm you guys too much with the terminology, just so you guys can follow along. All right, so now steps in order from the time you accept a load tender from your customer until it is until the process is complete. And that means that the carrier or the truck driver or the owner operator has what's called a clean bill. That means the delivery was delivered on time, no claims, no filed against, nothing damaged. So a clean bill means that there was no O, S, or D, no over, shorts, or damages. It's a clean BOL, no discrepancies. Okay, so let's go here. Number one, you receive load tender from customer. And we're gonna, so now, and I'm gonna eventually like go into greater detail in each of these, but because the question becomes, well, how do you receive it? You know, do you receive it? We'll say you can either receive an email, you can receive verbal tenders, or you can receive what's called EDI, electronic data interchange, where there's a sync between the shipper facility and your brokerage, where you have an integration set up where the data is transported electronically from their system to yours. It populates what's called your TMS system, your transportation management software. And a lot of the data is pre-populated. You just got to fill in. You maybe have to change some numbers to match your margins when you create that rate confirmation to give to the carrier, because you don't want to keep the rate the same that you got from the shipper that you're going to give to the carrier. You're not making any money. You want to take your margins off the top so you can make your profit. So if a shipper gives you a load tender at $5,000, you're not going to give it to the carrier for $5,000. You just wasted your time. Where's your margins, right? So if your margins was 20%, then you would, so if your margins in that example, let me see where your guys' head is at. So as a broker, if you receive a $5,000 load tender from a shipper and you have to create a rate confirmation through your TMS system and your margins is 20%, what would be the rate? What would be the amount on the rate confirmation to the carrier?
Say 4,000.
4,000. Now, Chris said 4,000. That's Chris, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. And the reason why is because if your margins is 20%, the shipper gave you a load tender of 5,000. You're taking 20% off the top. So 20% of $5,000 is what? $1,000, right? So you're subtracting that $1,000 from that total load tender that the shipper gave you, and you're producing a rate confirmation for the carrier at the difference, $4,000. So now at the end of that load, when it's delivered, when you invoice your shipper, who's your customer, how much are you invoicing the shipper for?
4,000.
Negative.
Oh, interesting.
You're invoicing your shipper for $5,000.
Oh, 5,000. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Right, because that's what the load tender was for.
That's
They
right.
gave it.
That's right.
Because you got to get paid from your shipper before you pay the carrier. Unless you have a factory company, then you let your factory company take off.
Right.
But if you didn't have a factory,
carrier.
right? If you didn't have a factory company, then you would invoice the shipper regardless of whether you have a factory company or not for that amount of that load tender, because that's the contract between you and the customer.
Right.
That amount. And then the agreement between you and the carrier is for whatever that amount on that rate confirmation is, which is 20% off of the load tender from the shipper, or whatever your margin. It could be 15%, it could be 10%, whatever that amount is. The formula is the same to figure out the difference from the tender to the rate confirmation. And those are two different concepts. A load tender and a rate confirmation are two different things. A load tender comes from the customer, the shipper. The rate confirmation goes to the carrier so they can deliver the load. Okay. And that information is funneled through your transportation management software, TMS, right? Any questions? So this is like high level, step by step, literally through a brokerage, right? From the time you get your tender from your shipper to the, so number two, if I can see it on here. Okay, well, number two is obvious. You're going to enter tender in TMS, right? Remember TMS, transportation management software. So what is a TMS system? Transportation management software is it's a combination of a CRM, customer relationship management, and a CMS, content management. It contains all the information needed to run your brokerage. So it contains information about your customers, who your customers are, who your carriers are, whether they are asset-based carriers, whether they are contracted carriers that you got set up or onboarded to your brokerage. It contains locations, it contains rates, it contains the loads that you have booked, all the necessary information in the workflow of brokering from a shipper through the brokerage to the carrier. Okay, examples of a TMS system will be like Ascend, Load Manager, Load Pilot, eFreight Solutions, Aljex, Axis. These are all examples of a TMS system. Okay, but the TMS system is what your brokerage is going to use and what your brokerage needs to function efficiently for you in the arrangement of transportation of freight, which is what a broker is. You guys arrange for the transport of freight. Okay, that's what brokers do. All right, you provide the arrangement of transport. You are logistics providers. All right, any questions about the TMS system? Let me give you, before I move on, I want to make it a little bit more thorough for you. So I'm going to open up a TMS system to show you what one looks like and the features of it. Okay. So in our back office here, you guys who are in here, you have access to this stuff, right? So an example is you click the image, it opens up a SAN. It's just one example of one. Okay. And this is an example of a TMS system. Remember, I was saying it has loads, it has the tenders coming in. Matter of fact, let me see if I can, am I sharing my screen? I am not. All right, let me share it now. There we go. Can you guys see the screen?
Yes, I can see.
Okay, so this is an example of a TMS system, transportation management software. This one's called a SIN. This is a basic plan. Just an example as a visual aid for you guys to get an idea of what they contain and what their features are. Okay, and what you will eventually be using, whether you're using it as an agent under a brokerage that you're working under, or as a broker under your own company. Okay. So some of the features, you have your dashboard. This is the dashboard overall. It contains everything, last 7 days, last 30, year to date, 90. Current fuel index, prices and stuff. This is just on the main dashboard. So whatever's highlighted here is what you're going to see on the screen. Then you have loads. You can put all the loads you've done in here. You keep track of them. You can go in there and do searches for those loads. You view loads. You could build a load. So when you get a tender, remember I said you get a load tender from the customer, the shipper, then you build your load in your TMS system to produce a rate confirmation for your carriers in order to for them to move that load. Okay, and it contains this under that section there. Tenders, either EDI tenders or manual tenders come across electronic data interchange, that's what EDI stands for. Your customers, which are the shippers in this case, right? They are the customers. Your assets. Now, assets and carriers are two different things. Assets are the truck and trailers that you may have that you own under your brokerage. You can be what's called an asset-based brokerage. And if you are, that looks more attractive to a potential customer because you already have your own resources and capacity in order to meet their needs. You don't have to go out looking for carriers on a load board or trying to get them onboarded to your brokerage. It makes you look a little bit better and more marketable. You can leverage that when you are talking to customers. You say, yeah, we're asset based. We have about 100 trucks at our disposal. So assets and then carriers are the carriers that could be in your onboarded network of carriers that you have set up in your brokerage. When you do the broker carrier agreement, you onboard carriers under your brokerage, essentially contract with them to move loads. So when they first call you on a particular load, you get their credentials and then you onboard them. Credentials being a copy of their W-9, their MC authority letter, their certificate of insurance, and if they have a factoring company, their NOA form, which is a notice of assignment. That's how you onboard carriers to your brokerage. You run them through compliance, make sure that they are fit to run loads for your brokerage based off of your qualifiers. And then now they will be under the carriers category, right? So assets and carriers, they're both truck and trailers, but they're different types. Assets are ones that you own. They're actually part of your brokerage. And then the carriers are the ones that you onboarded. Right, so you can add carriers, you can view the carriers that you already have in your network of carriers. Of course, your assets, you already, your power units, which are the tractors, your trailers, and the drivers. So, and you can create asset groups. So this is a TMS system. It does everything in-house for you. And it helps you keep better track of your infrastructure as a brokerage, okay? So is this information helpful?
Absolutely. I appreciate you taking us into the TMS.
Yeah, yes. So because at some point, if you decide to work for a brokerage as an agent, you're going to have to get training in their particular TMS system. But most of the TMS systems, some of the features are common, right? So, and I'm covering some of the common features. Now, it may have different types of integrations and plugins, but some of the common features are, what we're going over. Right. And then you got locations where you can add location like basically the lanes, where a customer gives you a lane picking up in Orlando, Florida, going to Atlanta, Georgia, whatever, right? You can add locations, you can view the location that you already have. You can actually you can do a bulk import of data into your system and put it in there for you. That way you don't have to type everything manually. Okay. And then you have rates. Insta rate, you can actually look in here to get an Insta rate or a DAT rate view to look up something to get a view of the rate according to either DAT or Insta rate, which I think is 1, 2, 3 integrated. So it gives you a spot market rate. So let's say you get so you can use your TMS. By the way, this TMS, Ascend, it integrates with DAT 1, 2, 3, and I think Truck Stop, Internet Truck Stop. So you can do a spot market rate. Go ahead.
Before you move forward, if you don't mind me asking, what is the necessary steps to book a load with a shipper, and also what are the steps to enter that within the system? Just the basic steps.
Well, you don't book a load with a shipper. Your carrier is actually the one that's going to transport the load. You get the tender from the shipper. You get the contract or the load tender from the shipper. So starting off, so if I need to go back, I'll say from the time that you cold call the shipper or spoke to them, and that shipper either said, hey, I need you to quote a lane for me, or here's my load tender. You can either accept it or reject it. Are you talking about at that point or at the point after you gotten a load tender from the shipper?
Pretty much, yeah. When you get the load tender, when everything is finalized, everything's ready to go. Like, what are the steps after that?
Well, the steps is, if we go back to our Word document, the steps is you receive the load tender from your shipper, either verbally through EDI email. Next, you're gonna, what we're doing right now, we're entering, let's say you don't have an EDI. If you're a new brokerage or you're working for a brokerage who's been established just maybe a year or two, chances are you're not going to have an EDI integration where the data comes in automatically, electronically. So you're going to be manually entering in and building a load in a TMS system based off of the load tender. So you're going to take the information in the tender and transport it into, so let's build a load then. Let me give you an example. Let's actually build a load, just for giggles, I guess here, right? So let's say we got a load tender and I'm the shipper, or you're the shipper, you gave me a load tender. I'm a broker, I'm gonna build that load. So I'm gonna go in my TMS system and I don't have EDI, so I gotta manually build a load. So I'm gonna go up into loads and I'm gonna select build a load. I can either do it through the wizard, or I can do it from a template that I have created. Well, I don't have created a template. I just got this TMS system out of the box. It's brand new, so I didn't create a template. So I'm gonna use the new wizard, okay? You with me so far?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna use the wizard, and now I'm gonna building this load in Ascend, load basics. So you're gonna start with load basics. You see this load basics right here? I'm in the load basics section. So you got load basics, you got customer information, which is your shipper, that's his next tab. You got carrier or asset information, which is the next tab. You got the number of stops, that's the next tab. And then you have the financials, that's the third tab. And then you save it and then put it onto the load board and then create your rate confirmation, okay? So let's build this load. So the status of the load is, of course, it's pending because we got to build it. It's not complete yet. You got different status. You can have a load in that you built and you need a driver. You can go in there and change it to need a driver, need a carrier, different options when you build a load. It could be an active load or it could be a plan. I'm planning a load because it's brand new. So under the planning, number one, or it could be under active, number two, the different subcategories of active. It could be under load completed, number three. So when you complete a load, you can come back into the TMS system, go into that specific load, search for it, or go into it, and then change it from pending to load completed and need to be billed, or if there's a claim. So there's different headings you can do throughout the workflow of that particular load's movement. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And then when you plan a load, you're building it, you're waiting confirmation. It could be active, the driver could be assigned, dispatched, in transit, however. So you have several things to do. So right now where are we? We are planning it, so it's pending, okay? And then we're gonna say truck status. It needs carrier needs set up. We don't have a carrier yet, so we gotta get a carrier set up, right? And in here, we got different categories in here too, right? Right now, we're building it fresh. We just got our load tender, right? From a customer. So, but you got different categories under the truck status. We don't have a truck yet. We're not asset based. We don't have our own truck and trailers. We need to get a carrier, a network carrier onboarded to our brokerage. Okay, you guys follow?
Yes.
Okay, and if anyone has a question, please stop me. I want to make sure that I want to give it to you very basic, right? That's what this is, Freight Broker 101 for beginners, right? So before the load, during the load. So you're tracking the truck under truck status, carrier setup, before the load, during the load, where they pick up, are they waiting, are they being loaded, on time, running late, whatever. So you can update your shipper by putting that information, especially if you have EDI integration. There's a connection electronically between you and the shipper through EDI. So as you update statuses on a particular load in your load section, the shipper can also see that as well. So, and you can give them a call, say, hey, truck's running a little late. I'm gonna put running late as a status, or hey, they're at delivery, but they're just waiting, or they're at delivery being unloaded. And the shipper say, okay. So you have several things to do or update. Right now, carrier needs setup, okay? That's where we are, all right? And then, give me 1 second, let me check something real quick. Someone is trying to, okay. So back to this. So we're building a load. Your question was, what do you do when you get the load tender? create the rate confirmation, right? So we're going to put it in a, let's give ourselves a reference number, ABC123, just to track it, right? And right here, this asterisk, this will appear in the load confirmation. Another name for the load confirmation is the rate confirmation, okay? It's the same thing, all right? You may hear rate confirmation, like when you talk to brokers, well, you're not gonna be talking to brokers because you're not dispatchers, but if you were dispatchers and you're booking a load with a broker, they're gonna say, let me send you either the load confirmation or let me send you the rate confirmation for you to sign, okay? What is the commodity? So let's say we are a dry van, example. I'm a shipper, I'm a dry goods shipper. So I'm gonna say dry goods, general goods for the dry van. So you got several categories under commodity, but let's just say we're dry. So we'll say general. Let's say the weight is, so the max weight on the dry van trailer is about 45,000. I'm gonna say 39,000, okay? So I'm literally filling out this TMS system based off of a load tender that I received from a shipper, right? And I'm manually taking the data, right? I'm manually taking the data from the tender and typing it into the TMS system. Because I don't have an EDI integration where if you had EDI, again, most of that data will be transported over electronically and populate everything for you. And then you would just have to replace your numbers, according to your margins, okay? So moving along, declared value of the freight. Let's say 100,000, because usually cargo is 100,000. So we're gonna say max weight. Is it a full truckload or is it a partial? It's gonna be a full truckload, okay? Is it new or used goods? Let's say it's new. You can say new or used. So you get the option of selecting everything, okay? Now, next section. So remember, we're still under the first tab, load basics. We haven't even went to our customer yet, who they are, our carriers, who they are, and the number of stops or what have you, right? So equipment type, we said it was a drive, so it's a van. We can say van, air ride, vented van, hazardous, whatever. It's gonna be an air ride van. Most dry vans that have swing doors in the back are usually air ride suspension. So I'm gonna say dry air ride, okay? You guys follow that?
Yes.
Okay. Give me 1 second. Ram is trying to get into the Zoom, and it won't let me in. Let me see. Let me send him the link, guys. Give me 1 second. He's one of our members. And what I'm doing is, if you have any questions about what we got so far. So is this helping you, Raymond, as far as, there's another Raymond too?
Yes, yes, it is.
All right, let's see. Oh, let's see, Kaya is there. I need to send him the link to join the Zoom. Where is it at? Here it is on my phone. Excuse me, I apologize. I need to make sure he gets in though. Join live online. Okay, let me send that to him. If I use Kaya, will it kick her out? There. So Kaya's in. Mr. Hux, did you get in? Raymond Hux, or is it Kaya's twice?
No, so I'm Kaya. I'm in. I just was trying to see if it was going to let another person in, so I think I joined it on my phone. But I sent him the Zoom, the password, and the ID, but I don't think that worked for him.
Yeah, does he have a Zoom? So usually, if you don't have a personal Zoom account on your phone or computer, so you can actually join a Zoom room or Zoom meeting. That's what I'm noticing. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that's what I'm gonna see. I'm using my laptop, so I'm not on the one on my phone, but he should. I'm not sure why it's not letting him in.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Excuse me.
And this is recorded, so you can always go back and watch the recording in our so on our let me share my screen so I can show you before I go back to the, well, I guess you guys can see the screen, right, with the TMS window here. So under training videos library. So it's going, this recording here is going to be in our training videos library under the month of March, or that specific day. So you can go back and watch the recording if you can't get in, but I'll still look out for him as he's trying to get in. And I sent him the link as well. So, okay, so back to the building of the load. So under equipment information, well, let me open it back up. So the length, usually it's gonna be 53 feet, a 53-foot trailer. You got 48s too, as far as trailers, but 53-foot trailers pretty much. And then temperature, temperature applies to refrigerated trailers. We are a dry van, so we don't put anything here. I can put 0, or I can just leave it blank, okay? And then under load notes, public, private, and load posting notes. So public notes, if you see the asterisk, this note is public and will appear on the rate confirmation, or on the load confirmation. So you may put something on here that you want the carrier to see, because the carrier gets a copy of the rate confirmation, right? So you can give him some special instructions like call me the moment you get to the gate, right? So that's kind of like a check call thing. You want to keep track of the carrier, or also if there are any challenges, we'll say, right? So things like that, that the carrier will see special notes, or you can add other things like any other special instructions that you want them to make sure you have. So this is dry vans. Make sure you have load bars and pads and a straps for your E-tracks or something like that, right? Because what he's putting on this trailer is going to be, needs to be strapped in and load barred across horizontally, right? So anything that you put in public note section, the public note load section is going to be public. On the load, it's going to be visible, I should say, on the load confirmation or the rate confirmation. So your carrier who gets a copy of the rate confirmation will see that special instruction, and there can't be no excuse that the carrier didn't know what to do, because it was on the rate confirmation and he should have read it, right? Private notes, private load note is, this is private and only viewable by your organization. So you can keep this. So if you got a few broker agents who are working this load, maybe one came in and the other one left for the day, you could put notes for one of your agents from the previous agent who just left to continue the load, and saying, hey, by the way, you know, and when that other person logs in and goes into this load, they can see the private note with some special instructions. By the way, agent 99, please be sure to call carrier, because only be one carrier, as per our instructions. So you may have trained your agents under your brokerage to do check calls on your carriers every so often, or every so many times per day. And in the private notes, when the next agent comes in and they're continuing on this particular load, following this load while it's in transit, they'll know when to call them. And this is not seen on the load confirmation visibly by the carrier, because it's a private load note. So only your internal, your organization people will see it, okay? And then right here, load posting notes and comments, the text entered in this field will be sent as load notes when posted to public load. So this goes on the load boards. So when this posts to a load board, this load that we're building, then this is what's seen on the load board by dispatchers or carriers themselves who are looking for loads that fall under the dry van category, and this load may meet their qualification. So you can say, please call our office at 800-888-1234 and reference, if I can spell it right, reference load number, what did I say at the top? ABC123, right? So there you go. Reference load number ABC123. And that's how that works, right? When you're building up the load, and you'll be able to see this when you are building your load in the TMS system, specifically this one here, Ascend. And a lot of the other TMS systems have some of the same similarities. Their user interface and what you see in front of you may be a little bit designed differently, but the functionality, some of the same functionality may be the same across different TMS systems, right? So, and that's the important part. As long as the functionality, the general concepts is the same, it doesn't matter how the user interface looks, it still serves its purpose. So you guys okay on that?
Yes, thank you.
Any questions? So you can move on to the next one, customer information right here, or at the bottom of this, you got customer information right here. So now so the customer is your shipper, right? So you're gonna move on to the customer information. I clicked at the top. So now, who's your customer? I got some use data in here. I'm gonna say Excellent Industries, right? I just put some information in there. I had some data in there already because I use this as a teaching tool. So now you've moved past the basics of the load. Now you're moving into who your customer is, the person who gave you this tender to begin with, and you fill their information in. And again, you just follow the prompts and things. So most of this is already populated. So now if you had to go back to load basics, if you can click it right here, or you can hit the back arrow, load basics, or if you're ready, you can move over to the next one, which is the carriers and the assets. So either you're going to be using so since you're not an asset-based brokerage, you don't have assets. So now you're going to be using a carrier that you onboarded, right? Hey, Tracy. So you move on to the next one. So now, we're going through so we're taking, what we're doing, Raymond, we're taking our load tender and we're manually moving it through the TMS system, right? To build that rate confirmation for that carrier, minus our margins, minus our percentage for our brokerage service, okay? That's what we're doing. Any question? Anyone else has questions? Everyone's following along with that?
So far, so good for me.
Okay.
Yep, all good for me too.
Okay, so now we are under, let's move to, I'm gonna go to the bottom portion. You can go to the bottom one, carrier/asset info or carrier/asset info. I'm gonna click the top one. So now, when you get to here, it says, I am using my own assets, drivers as carriers, company drivers and my own assets. I am using an outside carrier as the carrier for this load. Of course, if we're not asset-based, we don't have our own truck and trailers, then obviously we're going to use the second option, right? So we're going to click that one. And now carrier information, the carrier is not set. We go over here where this pencil is, edit carrier, right? So we want to put a carrier in there. So let's click that. And now we put a carrier in there. Carrier name, I'm just going to automatically populate it with some data that I already have. I'm going to put, let's put Walker. So now if you have a carrier that you've already onboarded and you put into your carriers section right here, remember the carrier section, then they will already be saved in there. So when you go to select the carrier, it will do a drop down and it automatically populate it with that carrier's information. And it gives you little hints too, like note, heads up, this carrier has not been marked okay to load. Well, you got to mark them okay to load. There should be a section down here or in the further process along here where you mark them okay to load before that rate confirmation is able to be booked. Okay. So some of the popular things here: driver and equipment information for this load. You can put the driver's name, put that name in there, driver phone number, whatever phone number. Everything you need to put, okay? And then And then we move on to the next one, which is the stops, right? How many stops? You may have multiple stops on this load. So again, we're making our way through the building of a load from the time you get it from the load tender from the shipper as a broker until the carrier gets that rate confirmation and that load is booked and they can start transporting the freight when they pick it up from the shipper, okay? So let's say that there's only, so you got the carrier's information in here and then the stops. You know, you don't have any in here now, but you can add a pickup. So the pickup is where you're getting the load from, which is the shipper, and then the delivery is where you're delivering it to, which is the receiver. Okay, you guys follow that? You pick up from shippers and you deliver from receivers.
Got it.
Okay?
Yep.
All right, so we're gonna add a pickup because we don't have any stops yet. So we're gonna add a pickup and we're gonna add a delivery. First, we're gonna add our pickup, which is stop number. That's our first stop. Stop location. We'll say, let's say Orlando, Florida. I'll just type in Orlando. It should automatically populate it, but if it does not, then I can spell Florida correctly. I'll just type something. And pickups. So the stop action is what? It is a pickup, right? And it's not a delivery. It's not a drop. It's not a drop trailer or hook trailer or anything like that. It's a simple pickup. So we're going to keep pickup. Freight pickup details. Cargo description. Should be able to fill that in, but if not, cargo description. We're going to say dry goods. Just give you an idea. Reference number ABC 123, right? Scheduled date. Let's say we're going to pick it up Friday. Scheduled time. We're going to say 0900.
Woo! Shit up here, man.
So we're going to say let's say 0930, okay? And then driver instructions. Please call broker/agent up on arrival for further instructions. All right. Just some simple stuff that you're showing you how to fill it out manually. Okay. And then you go down actual arrival time. So now once your driver get there, you can come into here and update when they actually got there. You may have scheduled it for Friday at 9:30. They may have gotten there, you know, a different time, right? And you just update that, enter the actual time of arrival, pickup location and delivery locations and total unloading time. So you can track your driver's arrival time and departure times in the load, right? So, and now we want to add another stop. You want to add another stop because that second stop is going to be a delivery. You got to pick up. So this is a one-and-one. You're picking up from a shipper and you're delivering to a receiver, okay? And in the cargo, of course, is still dry goods. You know, it's the same thing. The reference number is still the same, ABC 123. The delivery date, we're picking up from Orlando going to Atlanta. We'll say we'll say either Saturday or the following Monday. Maybe they don't have enough hours. They may do that 34 reset. So we'll say the following Monday and we'll say same time, 0930. Okay. Driver instructions could be still the same. Please call up on arrival. Okay. And then when they call up on arrival, once they call, you update the actual date and time details, you know, and then go from there. So now you move, and if there were any more stops, you would add another action, whether it's another pickup or another delivery. You just add those stops. All right, and now you move
Got
on. You move on to the next one now, which is now what? The final one is financial. So this gets a little, not tricky, but it's, it could throw people off when they move to financials. You could save and load board. So now under financials, your budget, right? So let's do it like this. The income budget is, we're going to add a line item, and the income is from the shipper, the customer. Category is, it's a flat rate. You can have different rates, fuel surcharge, things like it's a flat rate, and the shipper was paying you what? Let's say $5,000, right? One load. That's too much for that pickup from Orlando to, let's say Orlando to New York. That could be more of a $5,000 load, right? So we want to save that pay item. So now we got the $5,000 under budget. Our expenses is, the only expense we have in this is what we're paying to the carrier to move the load, which is what? We're going to give them 20%. So what's 20% of, we're going to give them the difference of 20%. So 20% of 5,000 is $1,000, right? So we're going to give the carrier how much? $4,000, right? So because 1,000 from 5,000 is 4,000. You guys follow that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so under expenses, we're gonna hit add line item because we got to put the amount that we're gonna pay the carrier, pay to the driver, right? Either to carrier or the driver. You can either say his company, which is Walker Transportation, or him himself, either one. Let's say the company, because it could have been a different driver, but you want to pay the company, and he could have had a company driver in there. So we want to bill his company, okay? The category is going to bill him a flat rate, and we're going to pay him $4,000. We're going to save that pay item. So we save the pay item of the budget, the income, what we're getting from the shipper, and we save the information we get from the receiver. So now what's left over? Look at what's left over. 5,000 total income, total expenditures, 4,000. Gross profit, which is the difference, $1,000. And what's the percentage? 20%. So it did the numbers for you. See how that works? That's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of the TMS system. So that's how you build and take your tender and move it in through the TMS system and go from there. Now I can hit save and exit to the load boards, go from there, and go build a new load, plan loads, and do all the other stuff too. But I just wanted to give you an overview of that. So that took all that time to go from that to get back to what we were talking about over here. And let me share that screen again. What we're talking about right here on this screen, right? Enter tender in TMS system, all of that for number 2, right? So, but that's cool. That's cool. You needed to see that broken down because you're going to eventually be brokers, right? So you need to see an example of how it's done, right? So number 3, locate carrier, right? But that was done in the TMS system anyway. You may have had one in your system, but now the question becomes, how do you locate carrier? Do you locate them load boards? Your network of carriers already established, network already established, or asset-based. You already have some in your brokerage, okay? That's number 3. Number 4, once you locate the carrier, you got to negotiate a rate with them for them to take the load, right? You have to negotiate that rate. Get them to see what they want. And if they agree to that, now you got to do what? Just because they agree to it, you still have to qualify that carrier. You have to make sure, how do you qualify a carrier? Well, you need their credentials. You need their credentials. What are their credentials? Right? Let's put that in parentheses. You need a copy of their MC authority letter, their COI, which is a certificate of insurance, right? Their W-9. And if they have a factoring company, you need a form from the factoring company to run the credit on you, the brokerage. It's called an NOA form, notice of assignment, right? Those are the initial credentials to qualify the carriers. Once your carrier is qualified and everything's good, then of course you want to send the rate confirmation, the rate or load confirmation. You saw the word load confirmation in the TMS system. Another one for it is called rate confirmation. And we can go into details about, we can break this down even further. I just want to give you a high level overview of the process of when you get a tender from a shipper to your carrier delivers that load, what happens in that process, okay, as a broker. So number 7, so once they get the rate, now you have to dispatch the carrier, basically telling them where to go, right? Oh, they see it on the rate confirmation too. They see the shipper's address, you know, whether it's appointed time, first come, first serve, or anything like that. They'll see that on the rate confirmation or the load confirmation. But it's still good as a brokerage. You want to still dispatch that truck, that carrier, okay? Basically sending them to pick up at shipper, okay? If you want to just basically know what that means, right? And then number 8, of course, once they pick up, you have to track the load. You can do that through GPS, macro point, check calls, okay? Those are ways to track the load. You call the carrier, hey, where you are. You're on the loading dock, you're at the security gate. Are you loaded? And then what time is that? Or are you at the receiver? Are you offloaded? Things like that, okay? And then once the carrier delivers and gets that clean BOL by definition is a BOL or a bill of lading that does not have any OS and Ds, overs, shorts, or damages. That's a clean BOL. Anything else has discrepancies on it, right? So you want to verify, after they get a clean BOL, you want to verify the carrier, invoice, and you want to bill your customer, okay? This is after receipt of clean BOL, right? BOL, which is bill of lading. All right, you guys are with me so far? I'm not leaving anybody behind. I want to make sure. And please stop me. All right? Please stop me. But this is what brokers go through. Okay? And then, all right, so after that, there's only 2 more, I believe. So after, well, 3 more, I think. After that one, then obviously you invoice your, let me change this back to regular color. Take that away, change it to black. You want to invoice your customer for load tender amount. Remember that $5,000 load tender amount. Whatever you guys agree to on the load tender. Okay, like example, I'll just put example $5,000. But you guys know what I meant, because we had that in that example that we just did on the in the TMS system. Okay, so you invoice your customer for load tender amount. Okay, number 10. Once you invoice your carrier and they pay, then once you invoice your customer and they pay, then you pay the carrier. Now, if you have a factory company, then the factory company pretty much can streamline this process. This is assuming that you don't, okay? pay the carrier, in this case, agreed upon rate, right? And like, for example, since we said $5,000 in the low tender, we're going to say $4,000 to the carrier, because that's our, if we're using 20% margins in our example, all right? Pay the carrier. And then after that, obviously, then you want to keep a ledger. You want to keep track of these things. Keep a ledger, or and your TMS system pretty much handles that for you. TMS system is the ledger, all right, because everything is in the customer relationship management or the content management software, which is the TMS system, transportation management software. Okay, and that's the high level overview of the steps that's needed, and from the time that you get a tender from your customer until the process is complete, which means your carrier delivers. Okay. Hopefully you guys, I didn't leave you guys too far behind.
No, that was perfect. Thank you.
All right. Any questions on that? Like any number that you want to like break down a little bit more, like, okay, well, in qualifying, what else is this? What else, if you have any questions about any of the numbers, let me know. You can point out what number it is and say, okay, well, can you explain this just a little bit more? Can you explain that just a little bit more? You know what I'm saying? I want to make sure that you guys, have that. And while you're doing that, I'm gonna save this to my desktop for now. Any questions? It don't matter. We got a few minutes. We can do Q&A.
No, that was pretty much it. Just kind of like the steps within the step, since we was kind of going over the general topic, but the steps within the, so thank you. Yeah, that was on time. Thank you.
Yeah. And so every broker should have, and some brokers break it down a little bit further than this. Some of them may not even do all these steps, but this is generally, some of the things that are done. So, all right. So receive. So, but let's say prior to number one, what are we doing prior to number one? Prior to receiving a low tender from a customer, you have to first get the customer, right? You have to first get the customer to say, either quote me a lane or here's my low tender, take this lane. Even prior to that, you got to get that customer by cold calling them, going to their facilities via invitation from an email. So now we're going back for brand new brokers. Okay, you got your brokerage active and you have no book of business, no credit. What do? Right? I just formed my brokerage. I just had the concept just got into my mind. Hey man, I want to start a brokerage. I know people who are brokers, or I've been driving trucks for a while, or I'm in the transportation industry in some capacity, in some shape, form, or fashion. And I'm seeing, brokers are doing pretty well. So now I'm conceiving in my mind, I want to do a broker. So now you go through the steps, the FMCSA website, you go through all that, all the qualifiers, you become active, you get your insurance, UCR, BLC3, bond, and all that stuff. Your authority is active. It's 1 week later. Man, I got active brokers, but man, I don't got no customer. What am I doing? What do I need to do? Now, maybe next training we'll go over that process, even leading up to this process. As far as the steps, we'll go over what do you do prior to all of this, right? And some of you may have already past that point where you already know what to do, or you're in the process of doing that now, right? And you're not here yet, but it's good that you've seen this, and now this gives you kind of a leg up on some things. Now, if you either do your own brokerage, or you come under a brokerage as an agent, and if you see that they're not doing some of these things in here, you may want to bring to their attention, well, weren't we supposed to do this? Or weren't we supposed to do this here? Weren't we supposed to do that there? And they may have it out of order. They may have it another way, but it's still, it's still effective for them, right? So any questions about any of these numbers that you need explained a little bit further? I'm gonna ask a few more questions on something different. But no questions about that? All right, all right. Let me see. Let me see.
Is paying the carrier 20%, or is that just an example?
It's not paying the carrier 20%. It's taking 20% off the load tender. That's your margins as a broker. That was an example of,
Okay.
of 20% for your brokerage. You could do like 15 to 20%. So if you got a $5,000 load tender from a shipper, yeah, you wouldn't give the carrier 20% because you're only giving him 1,000 of that 5,000. You need to give him,
Okay. All
you
right.
need to give him 4,000.
All right. Yeah. That okay. I see that now. All right.
No.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, you just took your margins off the top. So let me give you another example. See where your math is at. Let's say I got a load tender for 2,500, and your margins is 15%. So how much would you make off of that?
2,500. $375.
Okay. So now how much would the carrier get? And I'm gonna do 3 of these so I can make sure that you guys got it. Okay.
The carrier would get what the rate is on the lane.
Well, if you took your margins off of the 25, if your 15% of 2,500 is 375, then what's left over goes to the carrier. So how much would the carrier get?
Anywhere from 8 to 10%.
No, not percentage. No, dude, what I'm saying is go ahead and do the math. If 15% of 2,500 is 375, then what's left over from that 2,500 is the difference between 375 and 2,500, which is what? Anyone. So let me start over. So here's the variables. Here are the variables. Your brokerage, your margins is 15%. You won a bid or a load tender from a shipper, your customer, that paid $2,500. Okay, so you got to move that load, and the shipper's paying you $2,500. You're taking 15% off the top, and you're giving the rest of it to the carrier. So 15% of 2,500 was 375, right? Right. So what's left over from the 2,500? You take 2,500 minus 375. What is that?
Whoa.
Anyone else can do it too.
I think it's going to be 2125.
Oh,
There you go. So you see what I just did, right? So all I did was, and I'm gonna put on this sheet right here. So your margin was 15% as a broker. the tender was 2,500, right? From the load tender, from the shipper, load tender from shipper, okay? So your margin is 15%. So 15% of 2,500 was 375 to broker. So what goes to the carrier? Whatever's left over from the 25. So you took 375 out of the 2,500. So whatever's left over is going to the carrier, right?
Okay. Right.
Okay. So let me give
21.
you 21.25, right? So let me give you a note. I'm gonna give you two more. I always do things in threes when it comes to math. That way I know people understand it, right? So
Okay.
let's say 17%. I'm gonna change the number. 17%, 3,500. So I need what the broker gets, and I need what the carrier gets. All right. So I'm gonna delete those. But you got the two variables. You just got to figure out the numbers, right? You know, in other words, you know your margins as a broker because you set them. You set your own margins. I want to make 15%. I want to make 17%. I want to make 20% off of every load tender. A shipper just gave you a load tender at 3,500. So what am I going to get? What's 3,500? What's 17% of 3,500? And anybody can put the answer in there.
$595.
595. All right. So 595. So you either took your calculator and put 17 and a percent sign times 3,500, or you did 3,500 times 0.17, because 17% written as a decimal is 0.17. You just take take it and move it over to the left 2 times, right?
And so the carrier would get paid $29.05.
Right. So exactly. So whatever the difference is of 3,500 minus what you got, right? Minus the 595 is 29.05, and you are correct. So I'm trying to get you to see the concept. You can put any number in it to solve the problem, but I want you to understand the concept. Okay, so I'm gonna give you one more, guys, so you can get the concept. And also, too, I'm gonna ask you questions at the end of it too. So let's say the percentage is 19%. The shipper gave you a $5,500 tender. What's going to the broker and what's going to the carrier? Right? So this is important. I need you guys to understand this. This is important because you, as a broker, you got to figure out your margins and you got to figure out what you're going to pay the carrier.
1,045.
So that's going to who? The broker?
The broker.
Okay,
Correct.
so 55 times 19%, 1,045. So what's left over? What goes to the carrier?
4,455.
There you go. Now, does everybody understand that? Everybody get the concept? Now, here's a trick question. When that carrier delivers and they want to get paid, and you got to invoice your shipper first before you pay the carrier, especially if you don't have a factoring company. How much are you as a broker? How much are you invoicing your customer for? In this example, or any example for that matter.
5,500.
5,500.
55,000.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What the load tender originally said, because the load tender and the broker shipper agreement, that's the contract. So whatever you guys agreed upon in that tender, that's what you, the broker, is invoicing the shipper for. And then you're going to pay the carrier the difference out of your margins, right? You're going to take your margins off the top and give them the change. In this case, you're going to take your 1045 and you're going to you're going to pay the carrier what's left over. See how that works? So you are a true broker. You are the middle person. You are brokering a load. You are arranging for the transportation of the freight. You are agreeing to do that for the shipper at this low tender rate. And then you are taking a percentage off of that. You're taking your cut off the top, and then you are paying the carrier whatever's left over. But when you bill your customer, you're billing them for the full amount so you can pay the carrier their amount and then keep the change. That's what brokering is, right?
Right.
Any questions on that? I thought I had you guys for a minute. You guys were stuck for a minute. I'm like, wait a minute, hold up. We got to go back to this one. You guys good? We can stop here for tonight. This should be enough to help you guys. I'm gonna delete this off of here so I won't save it with that on there. I don't want that on there. But all right. Hopefully that helped you guys. You guys are good, right?
Yeah, that was perfect. That was on time. Thank you.
All right, and this is recorded. It's going to be in the let me log out in our back office for those who are members. I don't know if some people are tuning in as guests. Oh, okay. Mr. Nelson just threw a monkey wrench in here for you guys. Let me see. I'm not gonna do that, Mr. Nelson. Hold on. He said, Luis, I gotta read what Mr. Nelson just said. Give him a rate and then add a lumper fee. Oh Lord. Maybe next time. Hey, Mr. Nelson, go ahead. Unmute yourself, sir.
Yes, sir.
You don't want to do that to them, man.
Well, I was gonna see if they could do a rate with, and then turn around and bill it.
Yeah, because the lumber fee, you got to add that in there because you're building any accessorials that's coming from the shipper side. You got to build that. The shipper's paying for because okay, so a rate and a load tender is what the shipper's paying. Anything extra that's an accessorial that comes, the shipper has to pay that. You just got to be able to build or bill BILL the shipper what they are due, right? Or what you are due, I should say. So, but yeah, Mr. Nelson's trying to get y'all. So, but I just want them to get the base concept first, Mr. Nelson, and Mr. Light, Chris. This is Mr. Nelson. I think were we talking about Chris last time we talked, Mr. Nelson, as far as an agent because of his knowledge and experience, or?
No, I don't think we talked about Chris. I know that I'm working with Charles out of San Diego. As far as Chris, I think he was talking with some other lady, wasn't he? Not sure.
Maybe Tina. Okay. All right.
Because Chris was the guy that was going back to Denver, right? Correct?
Yep, that's correct.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
Okay, yeah, that's correct. So he what, Southern California back to Denver?
Exactly. Yep. Probably in a couple months, but still hanging out in LA. Probably start trying to link with some shippers, maybe, a week or two, try to get some connections established out here, and then head that way eventually.
Okay. So yeah, we'll get into details about like different terms you'll come across, like all-in rate or total inclusive rate, line haul rates, double brokering, reefer breakdown, just different things, different terms you'll see, or you may not see, but at least you'll have been exposed to. The difference between exempt freight, non-exempt freight, whether you have to have an MC or not, and stuff like that. That's basically what it is. Exempt means you don't need an MC, and non-exempt you do. Partials or I'm sorry, LTL loads are either partials or multi-drops. The other two terms for them. What else? We already talked about clean VOLs. What's an example of a bulk load? You can say a trailer full of floor-loaded potatoes or something. That's a bulk load. GMA pallets which is Grocery Manufacturers Association pallets. We used to call them GM pallets. Remember, Mr. Nelson, General Merchandise. Some other stuff. What else? Some other stuff. Just different things.
Yeah, that's when they were using 96-inch trailers, 40-foot long.
Right. And then what do drivers usually refer to the temperature recorder as? Tattletales. Just different things. So just common terms not common terms, but you may hear them every now and then. But we want to keep it basic though. So the general stuff as far as starting the brokerage, getting your credit built up, going after shippers, different methods and strategies to do that. We just went through a load tender and bringing it through the process of a TMS system. An example of one, the functionality of it, the user interface of it, and I gave you guys. Hopefully that was helpful for you guys, that going through that user interface, showing you an actual real TMS system and how to manually build a load. And the only thing I didn't do at the end of it, I didn't do the rate confirmation, because that in the send, you have to put it through your load board and then could produce the rate confirmation. So, but other TMS systems will have that integrated in it as well. So,
I'm kind of curious about that lumper feed thing. How you do that?
So, are you sure you want to go down that road? I'm not sure you want to do that. I'm not sure you want to do that. So a lumper,
1, 2, 3.
So a lumper fee, so it's an accessorial. So there's different accessorial. Some of the main accessorial concepts in brokering and dealing
How you
with
spell that?
What, accessorial?
Yes.
ACCESS. Hold on, I got this. I got my page opened up. Let me share my screen. I can put it on this piece of paper. You can see it. Okay, so accessorial policy, right? And let me enlarge it so you guys can you see the screen, right? This Word document.
Yes.
Okay, so that's how you spell accessorial policies. Some of them are, let me minimize. Well, I'll just keep this going. I'm gonna delete it so I can resave it. But lumper, and what, I don't know if for those who don't know what lumper is, at shipper and receiver facilities, the individuals who load and unload the trailers, like on the forklifts and stuff like that, those facilities sometimes charge for that service. That's called lumper. Okay.
So loading and unloading and offloading.
Correct.
Trailer.
Correct. And sometimes drivers will assist in that, either like physically assist or just moving pallets to the tail of the. But yeah, another accessorial policy is something called detention. Another one is called like stop charges. Another one is called tonu. And another one's called layover. These are some of the common ones. Detention is where you're at a facility for X amount of hours, and then after those X amount of hours that you give away for free, according to the shipper, they say we'll pay $50 or $100 an hour after the first 2, 3 free or whatever. They have a certain way they say it, but that's detention. Stop charges, every extra stop along the route, along that lane, along that line haul is be a certain amount. TONU is an acronym. It stands for truck ordered, not used. Okay. So in other words, if you are a broker and you book the load with a carrier, and then your shipper calls you after your carrier is en route or has been dispatched. So let's use some basic terms, right? Has been dispatched to go pick that load up at a shipper, at the shipper. The shipper says, he calls you the broker, hey, our customer canceled that load until next week. So let your driver know that they're not picking up. Man, we just dispatched him to go get that load. Oh, I'm sorry. So okay, so now we're gonna invoice you because they're gonna invoice us for toner, so we're gonna bill you for that. All right, and if that's in their agreement that they cover that, that's fine. If that's in their accessorial policy that they cover toner for whatever amount, however far that is, then that's fine. And as a broker, you would need to clarify that with your customer, whatever their accessorial policy. So when you first get set up with the customer and you're doing that broker shipper agreement and you're asking those questions, either quoting the lane or building that relationship, you want to get clarity on their accessorial policies and what their dollar amounts are, so you can be able to share that with the carrier when the time comes. So truck order not used is when a load is canceled, the broker's going to call the carrier and say, hey man, our customer canceled this load, man, I'm sorry. Man, or you call their dispatcher, man, my driver's on their way over there. So the dispatcher's going to call the driver, give them the bad news. Driver's going to say, well, we need to get a tow for this, man. These cover my fuel. All right, well, let's get $150, $200, $250, whatever, right? So, and then layover, you stand over maybe overnight or past the time that you normally are allotted there, and you're getting paid for that, okay? Maybe the facility is getting ready to shut down. Maybe they had an emergency, you were being loaded, or you had to sit there for longer than you needed to, way beyond detention. You know, you have to lay over and come back in the morning to get the rest. Maybe they didn't have all the product ready. They loaded half your trailer. They didn't have the product ready. They say, oh man, we got to shut down for the rest of the day. The rest of it's going to be ready in the morning. You can either stay on the dock. You can close it. If it's dry free, you can close your doors, pull off our campus, go to a local truck stop, come back tomorrow. You'll be the first one in the morning to get the rest of your load to be done. You know, something like that. There are certain situations that leads to a layover charge. So, but it is an accessorial policy. So these are some common accessorial policies. There are others, but these are the more common ones, especially for new brokers, that you will see more than others. Okay. Did that help?
Yes.
All right. So I'm going to delete these because I'm going to break this down even further and go into more detail a little bit, because I want every basic broker who goes through this training to understand the whole workflow of the movement of that freight as from a broker's perspective. You know, we get it from a dispatching's perspective, but from a broker's perspective, what are we doing as brokers when we move that load, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and close this up, and let's see. All right, any final questions? You know, hopefully everything was good for you guys tonight. Hopefully I gave you some insight into the whole workflow of the movement of that load from a broker's perspective. And we'll revisit this, of course, you know, because you want to always know this process. You're gonna, as you do it over and over again, repetitively, it's going to become second nature, because you're going to be doing it, especially if you get a customer that's moving 20 loads a week, 50 loads a week, right? So you're doing this so much, you're going to have staff, agents, everybody's doing it repetitively, but you want to put in place for your brokerage some type of SOP, right? Standard operating procedure that people can follow in case of mishaps, a structural infrastructure of SOPs that make sure that is done correctly. So when you first start your brokerage, you get to a point where that process is done correctly over and over again for you, just you by yourself or you with a couple of staff members, create that SOP. And then when you scale your business and you're growing, then that SOP can be applied. Of course, you update the SOP with changes as you see fit, changes in the market and things like that. But you always want to have a blueprint and a format that you stick with for your brokerage. That's what successful brokers do. Okay, just keep that in mind. All right, guys. Anything else? All right. Well, Friday, the next live broker training it's more intermediate, but you guys are more than welcome to tune into that one. We just go into more strategies as far as different concepts further along down the rabbit hole, if you will. So, okay. And of course, if you have questions, comments, and things like that, I'll put my number here all the time. So I'm doing now. And my email. And I'm going to be revamping my website on the freight broker side to put more detailed and even more thorough basic level information in it for you guys. You guys, it's going to be so much information, so basic, and it's going to be structured like an SOP that when you follow along with this, you're like, okay, well, we pretty much have everything that we can possibly need to, as a beginner broker, to have, okay? All right, guys, if you're not coming in Friday, I'll see you. If you are, I'll see you Friday. Otherwise, you have access. Everybody who's members have access, guest passwords to everything in this back office. You know, the workflow, the videos, the resources, everything that you need. You have access to me if you have questions. I prefer email primarily, then text, and then phone if it's an absolute emergency. In that order, please, 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 because I am very, very busy at this point. But I still make time to get a hold of or keep in contact with you guys, always, okay? Anyone can tell you that, so. All right, guys. Guys, be safe. Have an excellent rest of your week. And again, if you have any questions, if there's nothing that was clear to you, please contact me. I want to make sure that you understand this, right? I am just as invested in you are as, you know, as you are. So I'm invested in you as you are, so, all right? Hopefully it came out right. So,
Appreciate it. Thank you.
all right, guys. Have a good night.
Thanks again, Charles.
Yep.